Ojemini Eva Durrleman, the nurse who hid weapons in hospitals and attacked at night, November 12, 1943. 2:15 a.m., Lille, occupied northern France. The corridors of the Ambroise Paré Hospital are silent, smelling sharply of ether, carbolic soap, and boiled cabbage. Outside, a freezing rain lashes against the blacked-out windows. Down in the subterranean gloom of the hospital's laundry room, 52-year-old Eva Durrleman is not resting. She is kneeling on the cold concrete floor, her starched white nursing uniform illuminated only by a single shielded flashlight. Spread out before her is an arsenal that could get everyone in the building executed. There are 3 British Sten Amiga-2 submachine guns, still slick with the protective grease from their parachute drop. Beside them lie a dozen heavy Mills bomb fragmentation grenades and hundreds of rounds of 9mm ammunition. They arrived 2 hours ago, smuggled in beneath the bloodied sheets of a fake typhus. Patient. Upstairs, 2 floors above her, a squad of German Feldgendarmerie, military police, are pacing the reception area. Their heavy leather boots squeak against the linoleum. They are conducting a random sweep, looking for black market medical supplies and draft evaders. Eva's hands move with the precise, practiced economy of a surgical nurse. She wraps the freezing steel of the Sten guns in heavily soiled bed linens. She buries the grenades deep inside a canvas laundry cart, piling blood-stained surgical gowns on top of them. She knows that if a German soldier decides to lift just one of those sheets, she will be dragged into the courtyard and shot. The Jewish teenagers sleeping in the attic will be sent to the gas chambers. The hospital she spent her life building will be burned to the ground. Heavy footsteps begin descending the stone stairs toward the laundry room. A flashlight beam cuts through the dark. Eva does not panic. She stands up, brushes the dust from her apron, and steps out of the shadows to block the doorway. She narrows her eyes, adopting the terrifying, unyielding glare of a matron whose ward has been disturbed. She is unarmed, but right now she is the most dangerous woman in Lille. To understand how a devout Protestant nurse became a quartermaster for the violent French resistance, we must look at a woman who understood that saving lives sometimes requires dealing in the instruments of death. Eva Durrleman was born in Naudru, 1891, into a world that expected women to be quiet, compliant, and decorative. She was none of those things. She possessed a brilliant clinical mind and an unshakable moral compass. She sought an education in Bordeaux, at the Protestant Health Center's School of Nursing, studying under the pioneering Dr. Anna Hamilton, who was revolutionizing modern nursing in France. It was there she met Thérèse Matter. They formed a lifelong partnership, a bond of shared medical vocation and absolute mutual trust. Together, they were an unstoppable force of administrative and medical efficiency. In the 1920s, they moved to the industrial northern city of Lille and founded the Ambroise Paré Hospital and an attached nursing school. They built it from the ground up. It was their life's work. It was a sanctuary of healing. But in May 1940, the sanctuary was violated. The German panzer divisions smashed through the Ardennes. The French army collapsed. Lille, situated dangerously close to the Belgian border, fell under a brutal, suffocating military occupation. The Nazis immediately commandeered the best hospitals, seized medical supplies, and began enforcing their racial laws. For Eva, the occupation was not just a political disaster. It was an affront to everything she believed in as a medical professional. A nurse's oath is to protect the vulnerable. The Nazis were hunting the vulnerable. Eva and Thérèse made a silent, irreversible decision. If the Hippocratic oath meant anything, it meant defying the swastika. The Ambroise Paré Hospital underwent a covert, terrifying transformation. By day, it was a functioning civilian hospital, operating under the strict scrutiny of the German authorities. Eva and Thérèse walked the wards, charted fevers, and instructed young nursing students. But when the sun went down and the curfew sirens wailed across Lille, the hospital became a central nervous system for the Shadow War. Eva understood that the resistance needed more than just bandages. They needed logistics. They needed a place where the Gestapo would hesitate to look. A hospital full of contagious diseases and strict sanitary protocols was the perfect camouflage. The basement morgue and the laundry rooms became armories. When British Royal Air Force planes dropped weapons to the local maquis in the countryside, those weapons had to be moved into the city for urban sabotage. Resistance fighters smuggled the dismantled. Lee Enfield rifles and explosives into the hospital hidden in delivery carts beneath the bodies of the deceased or concealed in crates of fake medical supplies. Eva cataloged the weapons with the same meticulous precision she used for rationing morphine, but her war was not fought solely from behind a desk. Eva orchestrated and participated in the perilous nighttime logistics of the resistance. When a local cell planned an attack on a German rail depot or a collaborationist office, they needed their weapons delivered and they needed an extraction plan for the wounded. Eva utilized the hospital's ambulances. Under the cover of total darkness, breaking the strict Nazi curfew, she and her most trusted staff would drive through the blacked-out streets of Lille. An ambulance was one of the few vehicles that could occasionally bypass German checkpoints without being torn apart by guards. Inside the back of the ambulance, beneath the stretchers, lay the Sten guns and the detonators. They supplied the fighters. And when the night attacks went wrong, when the sharp crack of Mauser rifles echoed through the city and a young French partisan was left bleeding in an alleyway, it was Eva's hospital that took them in. Treating a wounded resistance fighter was a capital offense. Gunshot wounds had to be reported to the Gestapo immediately. Eva fabricated medical charts. A young man with a German 9mm bullet in his shoulder suddenly became a patient suffering from severe appendicitis. She operated in secret, often without sufficient anesthesia, masking the smell of blood and cordite with heavy disinfectants. But the weapons and the wounded were only part of the danger. The most precious cargo hidden within the walls of Ambroise Paré were human beings. As the Holocaust accelerated, the Gestapo began rounding up the Jewish population of Lille for deportation to the extermination camps in the east. Eva and Therese turned their nursing school into a fortress of salvation. They took in Jewish teenagers, including girls named Helene and Perla. They stripped them of their yellow stars, forged new identification papers, and dressed them in the crisp white uniforms of student nurses. They hid them in plain sight. When the Gestapo came knocking, sniffing for hidden Jews, Eva stood in the lobby, projecting the absolute, unquestionable authority of a hospital director, daring the soldiers to disrupt her medical wards and risk catching tuberculosis. This brings us back to the freezing night of November 12th. The German footsteps stop at the threshold of the laundry room. The beam of the flashlight hits Eva's face. She squints, shielding her eyes, and demands in sharp, flawless German to know why armed men are contaminating a sterile zone. She does not flinch. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, but her hands are completely steady. She informs the Feld Gendarmerie that the laundry carts behind her contain linens from the diphtheria ward. She warns them that if they touch the sheets, they will be quarantined for 3 weeks. The German soldiers hesitate. Typhus, diphtheria, and cholera were the great terrors of the occupying infantry. A bullet, they understood. An invisible bacteria terrified them. The soldiers back away. They apologize to the matron. They turn and walk back up the stairs. Eva waits until the sound of their boots fades completely. She lets out a slow, trembling breath. Then she turns back to the cart, finishes hiding the grenades, and prepares for the morning shift. For 4 agonizing years, Eva Durrleman and Therese Matter walked this razor-thin line. They operated surrounded by the enemy, trusting only a handful of people, knowing that a single betrayal, a single misspoken word by a terrified student nurse would bring the Gestapo death squads to their doors. They never broke. They never stopped. In September 1944, British and American tanks finally rolled into Lille. The German garrison surrendered or fled. The swastika was torn down from the city hall. Eva watched the liberation from the steps of her hospital. She had survived. The Jewish children she had hidden emerged from the shadows, alive. The resistance fighters she had armed and patched up marched proudly in the streets. But when the war ended, Eva did not seek out medals. She did not write memoirs boasting of her exploits. Like so many women who served in the shadows of the resistance, she simply went back to work. There were still sick people to heal. The hospital still needed to run. In the 1950s, Eva and Therese finally retired, moving to a quiet apartment in Paris to live out their remaining years together. For decades, their incredible heroism remained a quiet, localized legend known only to the people whose lives they had saved. History often prefers the loud, explosive tales of frontline combat, overlooking the quiet, terrifying endurance required to fight a war from inside a hospital ward. But the truth eventually found the light. On November 29, 1990, the State of Israel and Yad Vashem recognized Eva Durrleman and Therese Matter as righteous among the nations, the highest honor granted to non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. Eva passed away in 1993, at the extraordinary age of 102. She is buried in the Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris, resting beside Therese, partners in medicine, in life, and in war. Eva Durrleman's story forces us to redefine what a warrior looks like. She did not wear a military uniform. She did not parachute out of bombers. She wore a white apron and carried a stethoscope. But she looked into the darkest abyss of the 20th century and refused to yield a single inch of her humanity. She weaponized her intellect, her medical authority, and her profound courage to outsmart an empire of murderers. She proved that true resistance isn't just about the ability to destroy. It is about the iron-willed determination to protect the vulnerable, even when it means risking everything you have. If Eva's incredible journey of defiance and compassion moved you, Please consider leaving a like on this video to help us share her legacy. Subscribe to the channel to uncover more hidden histories of the incredible women who fought back from the shadows. Let us know in the comments how her bravery inspired you today, and thank you for helping us keep her memory alive.